Yacht King in the road.
Hello and welcome to the Shoreham View. This is The Other Side, and today we're joined by Preston Fan Ben. Ben, how are you doing, mate?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Looking forward to it now. It's all becoming real, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, especially with fixtures just being released and stuff like that. You can sort of almost feel that new season now. So I'm looking forward to getting into it all.
So before we look onto the future season, before we get into things, how do you think Preston did last season?
Oh God, it was a really funny season for Preston last time round. To be honest with you, there was sort of the feeling going into it that there would be this sort of squad refresh that is happening with us at the moment. You know, we were coming into that season with probably our 5 best players all running into the final years of their contract. So at the start of that season, there was a bit of a feeling like, okay, this is the last chance with this sort of group of players to really sort of have a push towards the top 6 or something like that. But for whatever reason, it didn't end up materialising. You know, injuries at certain times didn't help us. The contract situation certainly didn't help us. I think in the lead up to sort of January, there was sort of a lot of unsettled players and things like that. And ultimately in that January, it was all a bit hectic with us, really. You know, we probably lost our 2 best players in Ben Davies, who went to Liverpool, and Ben Pearson, who went to Bournemouth. And we just sort of had to plaster over the squad in that January. You know, we had an influx of players. We brought in about 8 loans or something crazy like that, just to sort of get us through to the end of the season. Obviously, Alex Neil, towards the end of his tenure, things were getting a little bit rough with the club and a little bit toxic at times and things like that. And you could just see that he, as a manager, was sort of at the end of his tether. You know, he hadn't particularly been helped out by the club and things like that in certain situations. But I think it probably was the right time for Alex Neil to depart. And then obviously we've recently brought in Frankie McAvoy, who was his number 2, and we've since promoted him to the manager since. But since McAvoy came in, you know, towards the end of the season, we had a really sort of positive run of results. So I'm hopeful that that can sort of lead us into next season, and we can sort of use that momentum as a bit of a springboard going into next season, really. But yeah, it was a real mixed bag for us last season.
So you mentioned there, obviously, Neil's departure and Frankie Mack getting promoted. Tell us a bit more about your gaffer and like the type of football he likes to play.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting one, really, because obviously throughout pretty much his whole footballing career, he's sort of been with Alex Neil. So when he was initially given the job until the end of the season, I myself, I was quite sceptical about it, really. You know, towards the end of Alex Neil, it was all a little bit dreary and stuff like that. And a lot of fans were sort of asking the question, like, is McAvoy going to be any different to sort of Neil because they've, you know, worked together and stuff like that? But there has been quite a big, quite a difference, really. You know, Alex Neil was always sort of very cautious of the opposition, very adaptable and things like that. But we've really switched up with McAvoy. We've gone for sort of 2 up top for the majority of the time under him so far. Gone to a sort of 3 at the back system as well. But I think with North End, it's all about sort of utilising and getting the best out of the players we've got. And I think we are genuinely best set up to be a counter-attacking team, you know, playing on transitions, playing on breaks and stuff like that. I think our midfield is probably our strongest asset, and the times where we probably come unstuck this season is when teams just sit off us and let us have the ball a little bit, and we're asked to break them down, because if a team leaves spacing behind or something like that, we can be quite effective.
I know you mentioned there, obviously, the likes of Ben Davies leaving amongst quite a few other players. Ben Davies, somebody we were obviously touted to be going for until Liverpool came in and smashed that to absolute bits. But looking at the players that have departed, where do you think is the biggest area of improvement that Preston has? Where do you need to strengthen most in this window?
There's probably 2 areas. I think coming into this window, I would have said centre half, but we've sort of shored that up now a little bit. You know, we brought in Liam Lindsay from Stoke and Seth Vandenberg, who's come back on loan from Liverpool as well. The 2 positions, like as of recording right now, where we're definitely short are right back. We lost Darnell Fisher in January, and we've sort of been plastering over that position. You know, Alan Brown, who's usually a midfielder, has been filling in there. Seth Vandenberg, who's usually a centre half, has been filling in there. So that's a position we need to look into, and striker as well. We really need a goal scorer, and God, we've probably been saying this for the last 3 or 4 seasons now, to be honest with you. Ever since we let go of Jordan Hugill, really, but we have players up front who can be effective. are good at sort of filling out different roles. You know, Ched Evans, a former United player, has been a really good target man for us so far. Emile Reece, someone who can sort of make runs in behind. Scott Sinclair can pop up in moments, but consistently someone who's going to hit the back of the net at the moment. We don't really seem to have that within the squad, so I am hopeful that we'll go out and look for a bit more firepower in this window.
So you mentioned there, obviously, the players that you have got available. With what's on paper, I know the transfer window is open. It's not really in full swing yet. But if you had to pick one person out of the people on Preston's book right now, who would you say is your star man that you need to keep fit at all costs?
I'd say, like I was mentioning before, I think midfield is our strongest area. And for a star man, I'd probably go for someone like a Ryan Ledson. I think that, especially since Ben Pearson left in January, last season was a bit like sort of a coming of age season for Ledson, really. You know, he was always seen before that season as the bit of the understudy who wasn't quite, you know, sort of ready. He was a little bit rough around the edges and that sort of thing. But yeah, last season his game came on leaps and bounds. Yeah, you know, he will go flying into tackles and stuff like that, but his ability on the ball and to be able to pick a pass out going forward, I'd certainly say sort of him next to Ben Whiteman, who we brought in January from Doncaster. I think those two will form quite a nice partnership between themselves. So yeah, I'm very hopeful for Ryan Ledson. I'd sort of say he's a bit of a star we've got at the moment.
I would say we know a bit about Whiteman. Very good player. Always had good potential. I don't think he were maybe ready for the step up that we had at the time, but he is a good player. But Ledson, another one that seems to have been around for a long time, but he's still fairly young, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not too old. And like I say, when we sort of brought him in, his game time was a little bit limited just because we had so many other options ahead of him in that midfield. But with Pearson moving on, it was sort of the natural progression for him to get himself into that side. And yeah, he was my player of the season last year, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant and really took that chance when it came round to him.
Now, Ben, people either love this bit or absolutely despise it. But if you were going to sum up Preston to every other fan in the division using only 3 words, what 3 words would they be?
Oh, God. 3 words. Unpredictable would definitely be one. Inconsistent would probably be another. And another word to sum up Preston North End. I'd say underdogs as well. Yeah. You know, we're not someone who's going to be like a big spender in the Championship or anything like that. We've had a couple sort of playoff runs in the past few years, and I think we've always been sort of seen as that bit of an underdog in that sort of race. So I'll go with those 3.
Excellent. Ben, before I let you go, let us know where we can find you on socials and let us know a bit more about your content.
Yeah, so you can find me over on YouTube and Twitter at BenHD. Over on YouTube, it's all sort of Championship-related content, really. So doing previews, looking forward to the season, and then once that gets going, score predictions and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, looking forward to it all.
Excellent. Ben, been a pleasure having you on. Good luck for the rest of the season, except when you play us, obviously. And we'll see you at your place on Boxing Day. Thank you again.
Top stuff. Looking forward to it.